Okay, let's unpack this. Just glance around you right now. Maybe you're sipping a coffee or you've got your phone in your hand. Ever truly stop to consider the global journey those items took to reach you? I mean, the coffee from a farm, thousands of miles away, the phone assembled with components from like dozens of countries. Today, we're doing a deep dive into the fascinating, intricate world of international business. You know, how goods and services don't just magically cross borders, but how this massive interconnected global economy actually ticks. We've got some incredible source material, and well, our mission is to extract the most important nuggets of knowledge, giving you a serious shortcut to being well informed about this vast global marketplace. You know, it's wild when you think about it. What did you have for breakfast this morning? Because, well, if it wasn't for international trade, that cup of tea from Kenya maybe, or your French cheese, or even the sugar on your table from India might not be there at all. And it's not just breakfast. I mean, look around your home, your TV, probably Japan or Korea. Computer from China, right? That comfy shirt you're wearing, maybe the Philippines. Kitchen appliances, maybe Hong Kong or Malaysia, and even the cocoa in your chocolate at Brazil or Colombia, perhaps. Foreign trade truly infiltrates every corner of our daily lives.
Yeah, it really does. And what's truly fascinating here is just how fundamentally intertwined international business has become with our daily existence. We often think of domestic business as, the core of manufacturing, buying, selling within our own country's borders. But today, the sheer scale of international business, or foreign trade as it's also known, it kind of dwarfs that in impact. It reaches into every corner of the globe. And it's not just about a product traveling from point A to point B. It's about entire economies becoming interdependent. Consumers now just sort of expect goods and services from around the world. And that creates this whole universe of employment opportunities, from foreign sales and negotiating distribution deals to intricate shipping logistics and even planning, product conversions for different markets. Economies really aren't defined solely by their geographic borders anymore.
That's a massive undertaking, though. When you think about all those products, that French cheese, for instance, getting from one side of the world to the other, what's stopping it from getting held up indefinitely at, say, the port of Hong Kong? There must be some unsung heroes making that happen, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, there are. That's where a crucial player steps in, the freight forwarder. To avoid those, nightmare situations of shipments stuck in customs limbo, exporters rely heavily on these global intermediaries. Think of them as the ultimate logistics wizards, really. They specialize in shipping goods to customers in other countries, navigating that labyrinthine world of export regulations, optimizing shipping costs, and crucially, mastering the customs process.
Okay, so they're not just arranging transport. They're almost like legal and customs experts for the exporter. Is that
Precisely. Yeah, exactly. Most freight forwarders also double as customs brokers. They act as the bridge between international companies and customs officials, helping shipments pass inspections and making sure all the required tariffs and duties are paid. It's a highly specialized and, frankly, vital role. And that's just one example. There's so many specialized roles. Global trade demands. We also see customs inspectors, interpreters, or translators bridging communication gaps. Global purchasing managers sorting materials worldwide. International sales representatives driving demand across continents. It's a vast ecosystem. Now, that brings us to the core question. Why do nations trade in the first place? It really boils down to two fundamental economic principles. The first one is absolute advantage. This happens when a country can simply produce a good or service at a lower absolute cost than anyone else, often because they have an abundance of natural resources. Think about some South American countries with their perfect climate for coffee, maybe. Or Saudi Arabia with its vast oil reserves. They just have this natural inherent edge.
right? So they can just produce more of something for less money. That makes intuitive sense. But what if a country is just, good at everything? Or, good at multiple things?
That's where comparative advantage comes into play. And it's far more nuanced and perhaps even more powerful in shaping global trade.
Yeah.
If a country does have an advantage in more than one area, it doesn't try to do everything.
No.
Instead, it specializes in producing what it's relatively most efficient at and then trades for the rest. For instance, a country might be capable of producing both high-end smartphones and basic clothing really well. But if the global market for smartphones is far more lucrative, and maybe they have a slightly better edge there, they'll focus on smartphone production, maximize their economic wealth, and simply buy their clothing from somewhere else.
Okay, so it's about optimizing, not just being good at something. It's about being better at one thing compared to another.
Exactly. Optimizing. A classic real-world example is the specialization we've seen between, say, China and the U.S. China historically has leveraged its comparative advantage in cheaper labor, for mass production of simpler goods. The U.S., on the other hand, has focused more on its comparative advantage in specialized higher-cost labor for sophisticated, knowledge-intensive goods and services. Each country benefits immensely by specializing in what it does comparatively best and then trading. This is really the engine that drives global supply chains.
So what does this all mean for you, the consumer, when you're, I don't know, walking down the aisles of your favorite store? Ultimately, without this foreign trade and this specialization, many of the things you buy would either cost significantly more or maybe just not be available at all. We might import something because another country can produce it cheaper, raw materials or labor, but sometimes it's not even about cost, is it? Consumers will happily pay higher prices for foreign goods if they think the quality is better, like French perfumes or the precision of Japanese cars, maybe Swiss watches. Or, let's be honest, sometimes we just enjoy the global variety. Okay, so now that we've sort of pulled back the curtain on what international business is and why nations trade, the next logical question is, how do we actually measure the health of these incredibly complex global relationships? We start with two really fundamental terms. Imports, which are the products and services we buy from other countries, and exports, the goods and services we sell to them.
Right. And to put that into perspective, let's look at a country like Saudi Arabia. In 2021, their main imports included things like machinery, electrical equipment, base metals, with China and the U.S. being major partners there. On the export side, well, yes, oil remains their colossal export. Saudi Arabia, which ranks as the 19th largest exporter globally, also ships out agricultural products, chemicals, construction materials. It's a broader picture than many might imagine. And this brings us neatly to the balance of trade, which is essentially just the difference between a country's total exports and total imports. Pretty straightforward. If a country sells more than it buys, it has a trade surplus. That's generally considered a favorable position because, well, it's bringing in more money than it's sending out. Conversely, if it buys more than it sells, it runs a trade deficit, which is seen as an unfavorable position.
And Saudi Arabia, with all that oil, they usually have a pretty consistent trade surplus, right?
Exactly, yeah. Due to those extensive oil exports, Saudi Arabia has recorded a significant trade balance surplus in many years, since I think 1968, which positions it very strongly in trade terms. Now, that raises an important question. Why is it generally seen as better for a country to export more than it imports? Well, because when a country consistently has an unfavorable balance of trade, a deficit, it effectively owes money to others, and that can lead to foreign debt and potentially strain its economic future down the line. I mean, while a deficit isn't always catastrophic, especially if it's funding productive investments, persistent and large deficits can indeed be a cause for concern.
Okay, so that covers the physical goods flowing in and out, the boxes on the ships. But as we know, economies aren't just about products. What about the vast flow of money itself? From tourism, international investments, maybe even government aid. How do we track that bigger picture?
That's where the balance of payments comes in. And it's a much broader, much more comprehensive measure. This is the total difference between all the money that comes into a country and all the money that goes out of it. It's not just physical goods and services, no. It includes tourism receipts, investment flows, both foreign direct investment and portfolio investments, and even things like government aid, remittances people send home, or bank deposits. It's the whole financial picture.
So hang on, a country could actually have a trade deficit buying more goods than it sells, but still have a positive balance of payments if maybe they're receiving a ton of foreign investment.
Precisely. Yes, that's entirely possible. A positive or favorable balance of payments means a nation receives more money overall in a year than it pays out, which is obviously a strong position. A negative or unfavorable balance means it's sending more money out total than it's bringing in. So while there are related concepts, remember the key distinction. Balance of trade is specifically about the import and export of physical goods, whereas the balance of payments is this sweeping measure of all foreign exchange inflows and outflows, the big picture.
Right. And speaking of foreign exchange, moving all that money across borders, that brings its own set of huge challenges, doesn't it? Especially when you consider just the sheer number of currencies around the world. You've got the Saudi riyal, the US dollar, the euro, Brazilian real, Indian rupee. It goes on and on. It's not just a medium of exchange at that point, is it? Its role as a store of value becomes incredibly relevant when we talk about currency fluctuations.
Exactly. That's a great point. The whole complex process of exchanging one currency for another, it happens in what we call the foreign exchange market, which is essentially this vast global network of banks constantly buying and selling different currencies. and the exchange rate itself. It's simply the value of one currency expressed in terms of another. So, how many Saudi riyals does it take to buy $1 today? That number is constantly shifting, and the fundamental forces behind those shifts are supply and demand. Now, digging a bit deeper, there are three main factors that really influence these currency exchange rates between countries. First, as we just touched upon, the balance of payments. When a country has a favorable balance of payments, more money flowing in than out, its currency tends to stay strong or even rise in value. Why? Because there's higher demand for it from outsiders needing to pay for things in that country. An unfavorable balance of payments, conversely, often sees its currency decline as demand lessens. Make sense? Second, economic conditions within the country itself play a huge role. Two key parts here. First is inflation.
When prices increase rapidly and buying power goes down, well, it makes that currency less appealing, right? Why hold something that's losing value? This reduces demand and causes its value to fall relative to other currencies. So, for example, high inflation in Brazil would likely reduce demand for the Brazilian real pretty quickly. Then there's interest rates. Now, this one's interesting. Our sources indicate that higher interest rates, while they might attract some foreign capital seeking higher returns, they also typically create lower consumer demand within the country. And that reduced domestic demand, according to the sources, can then lead to reduced demand for the nation's currency overall, causing its value to decline. It's a bit of a chain reaction. And finally, the third major factor is political stability. This one's huge. Companies, investors, even individuals were all inherently risk-averse, generally speaking. So if a government changes suddenly, or maybe new laws are introduced that restrict foreign businesses or create an unpredictable economic environment, well, that generates significant uncertainty, major instability. And that instability erodes confidence in the country's currency. People and businesses start moving their money elsewhere to perceive safer havens. This capital flight causes demand for the currency to plummet, and its value declines. Stability is key.
Wow, okay. It really is a delicate balance of forces, isn't it? Constantly shifting. We've covered so much ground today. From the basic definitions of international business and those vital, sometimes overlooked, roles like freight forwarders, to understanding the fundamental concepts of absolute and comparative advantages that really drive trade. We've tackled the crucial differences between balance of trade and balance of payments, and just dissected what makes currencies ebb and flow on the global stage. It's a lot.
It is a lot. But if we connect this back to the bigger picture, understanding these global economic forces, it can empower you in so many ways. Think about it. Just as countries leverage their absolute or comparative advantages to shape their global trade strategy, you, as an individual, you possess your own unique aptitudes and abilities.
Yeah.
Your own advantages. So maybe consider what your special aptitudes are and how understanding these macro-level dynamics, these national advantages and currency shifts might inform your own career choices or maybe your investment decisions, or even just how you view the origins of the everyday products all around you. Give you a different lens.
That's a truly powerful thought to mull over. Really is. We sincerely hope this deep dive has given you a significant shortcut to being well-informed about the global economy. And maybe, just maybe, sparked a newfound curiosity for all that's happening just beyond your own borders.